All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Just gonna wait a minute here as folks join us. All right, we'll get started momentarily. All right, very good. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to today's RPO Leadership Forum, Culture by Design. This is Lamis Aburama with the RPO Association and your host. Thank you for joining us. I'm excited to welcome a new speaker to the program, John Chapman with Hueman RPO. Hueman is a great partner of the association and expert on culture and employee engagement. Before we get started with our presentation, I'd like you to help me welcome John and give him a warm RPOA welcome by saying hi in the chat panel. Would love to make the webinar engaging and informative. I know most of you are familiar with Zoom. We are using Zoom webinar today, and it is slightly different. So we're gonna run a little drill here. I'd like you to open your chat window by clicking on that chat icon. You know how to do this. Before you send your message, note the arrow on the right and note how it's defaulted to panelists. I'd like you to select panelists and participants, or it's panelists and attendees, so we can all see your messages there. Tell us your name and where you're calling from. I'm here in Richmond, Virginia, and John is joining me from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Joe is in New Mexico, if I'm not mistaken. During John's presentation, welcome everyone, welcome Sarah, welcome Courtney. During John's presentation, send any questions you might have or comments in the chat panel. And welcome, Jessica. Now that we get you all warmed up, I'd like to formally introduce our guests. Our speaker for today, John Chapman, is the Director of Strategic Partnerships at Hueman RPO. He has over 25 years of leadership experience that has spanned different industries. You will hear more from John shortly. I would also like to welcome Joe Marino, Executive Vice President of Hueman. Joe is a founding member and culture champion at Hueman. He has worked with the leadership team and employees to successfully drive a culture by design for over 12 years. Welcome both. We are so happy to have you. Now, John will start us off with a presentation, and Joe will be available during the Q&A to answer questions. For the best experience, we suggest that you switch to the presenter view. With all that housekeeping, I would like to officially welcome John. Welcome, John. Nice to have you.
Hi, Lamise. Thank you so much. Really just appreciate the opportunity to join you today. Just want to start by thanking you for all that you do and all that the RPOA does in providing fantastic content to your members, those who are interested in learning more about recruitment process outsourcing. And I also want to just thank everyone who's joined us today. I know it's only a half hour, but it's still time out of your day. So I'm grateful to have you joining us. And as a basic agenda and some basic takeaways that I'd love for you to walk away with, I would love it if you would walk away with understanding better the value that culture and engagement bring in driving organizational success. I'll also be sharing 5 key areas to focus on as you develop a culture by design. And then I'm also going to share some practical ways to help you get your teams engaged, and we're going to make sure and leave some room for some Q&A at the end as well. But to get started, let me share a little bit about me. I think honestly, one of the best ways to get to know me is to get to know my family. I live here in the Pittsburgh area and featured here from right to left, my wife, Libby, my daughter, Faith, my two sons, David and Colin, and of course, probably the most enthused character in the picture, my dog, Winnie. And as an updated version, this is a little bit more current. I thought I would show you this, and it's not going to be a webinar about my family. It's really just to show you and share with you that culture is a huge deal to me, whether it's my family, whether it's my work. At Human, I serve as the Director of Strategic Partnerships, where I have the pleasure of introducing potential partners to Human's recruitment process outsourcing solutions. So, really, I get to help design solutions to meet companies' unique talent acquisition challenges. So, I spend a lot of time sharing about Human's culture, but also taking a lot of time to learn about the cultures of the companies that I get to talk to every day. Personally, I've been formally trained in leadership development, particularly around culture. Love the opportunities I have to make a difference in the companies that I serve. But what about Human? What's this company with the uniquely spelled name, and what are we all about? Let's talk a little bit about Human. As an RPO, Human serves as an extension of a company's talent acquisition arm. We help with hiring spikes, hard to fill positions, typically saving companies a lot of money over alternative talent acquisition solutions. Um, we we uh, we understand that there's a pretty crowded field of RPOs out there, right? So what sets us apart? What is it about Human that makes us different? Well, it starts with our name. You see, we believe that every company is unique. They have a different culture, they have different hues, if you will, and that makes them unique. So we focus on recruiting the best candidates for a company that not only have the right skill sets, but that match a company's mission, vision, and values. And speaking of culture, just to give you kind of some background, Fortune has named us as a best place to work for the last 15 years in a row. Gallup has named us as a most engaged workforce in the world, 2016, 18, and 20. We were rated best of RPO in 20 and 21 by an organization called Clearly Rated. And that's based solely on our own customers' feedback. So when I have the opportunity to share about Human, I always talk about the culture. And I would say that's what makes us uniquely qualified to even be presenting today. So let's look at the Human way just briefly. Now, these are all critical elements of what we at Human do, but honestly, the key to our success is our people. And our people, our teams thrive because of our culture. My first realization of this was when I was interviewed for the position that I hold now. There were a total of, I think, 7 interviews, Joe, if I'm not mistaken. And those were both formal and informal that took place to make sure that I was a fit and that I thought Human was a fit. And I really began to understand the culture when I went down to orientation in Jacksonville. And the first thing I found when I went to the desk that I was going to be using for the week was a pile of handwritten cards by people that worked at Human, just notes of thanks, notes of encouragement, notes of welcoming. And it couldn't have started things better for me at Human than to have those welcoming notes. Honestly, as the day progressed, if you want to know the truth, I started to feel like maybe I was in the Truman Show. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie. It's the story about the guy that lives in a totally fake world and he's the only one who doesn't know it. Well, I was beginning to wonder if this was all a facade because it just seemed too good to be true. Was I a part of some fake utopian work culture, right? Well, I'm happy to say that Human hasn't changed. That in fact, the culture has even improved more than when I first started a year and a half ago. And I feel like I'm living in a real case study, honestly, a real life case study on the value of culture. And if any company is qualified to speak about culture, it's Human. It really is a culture by design here at Human. So I wanted to start us off with just a quick poll question today. Let's take a quick poll to get a pulse on where other organizations stand with culture. How would you characterize your organization's culture? Take just a few seconds to answer, and then we'll evaluate the results. Lamise? results are trickling in here. Give it a couple more seconds.
John?
Everybody get a chance to vote?
I think we're good, yeah.
Okay, great. So, looking at the results, these are interesting. Most of the people say that you either have a strong organizational culture or that you spend a little time on organizational culture. I think that's fantastic, honestly. Not anybody answered that you don't pay much attention or any to your culture, and I think that's fantastic. I think that when you look at culture, a good quote that I've always found helpful is a quote by a guy named Peter Drucker. Now, you've probably heard of this guy. He's one of the best known and most widely influential thinkers and writers on the subject of management theory and practice. And he said this: culture eats strategy for breakfast. So what does that mean? Well, it just simply means that if you have a strategy in your company, it's not a bad thing, but if you have that with all culture, you're ultimately missing out on a lot. In fact, in his book, Corporate Culture and Performance by John Kotter, he demonstrates a snapshot of just some of the things that companies without a thriving culture are missing out on. And I would say that all of these things, as I look at all of these things, and I think Joe would concur, these are all things that we're seeing at Hueman. We're seeing these as a result of a thriving culture. But the things that stand out to me as an employee, as somebody that's in the midst of it, is the three things that I'm going to highlight here. We have a stronger team, and ultimately people are just more happy and productive employees. I definitely see a higher contribution margin. People are excited to contribute, and ultimately that increases our profits. And then also that increase in customer satisfaction as proven by Clearly Rated. Those are three things that stand out to me without question in terms of who we are and what we do at Hueman. So what is it that ultimately helps with the culture by design? At Hueman, we would identify these 5 key components of a culture by design that we adhere to in the day-to-day of business. We ultimately would say that these are the 5 things that it boils down to in order to make your culture thriving. And so let's start with, this is really what I want to focus on today, along with some engagement pieces. Let's start though with leadership buy-in. What does this look like in a company? A good friend of mine, Rick Newton, who works for a company called Newton Institute, kind of built on what Drucker said, and he takes it a little step further. He actually says that if culture eats strategy for breakfast, then leadership eats culture for lunch. What does that mean? Well, it just simply means that if you have a culture, you must have a leadership team that ultimately is really communicating that effectively through your organization. And at Hueman, we see this firsthand through our founder and CEO, Dwight Cooper. Dwight is a phenomenal guy. He would tell you that his focus on culture is not just every day or every week, it's all the time. Joe, I think, would agree that Dwight does everything he possibly can to make sure that the culture is really breathing throughout the entire organization. And I would say that 3 things that our leadership does to demonstrate buy-in, and honestly, 3 things that you might help your leadership implement at your organization are, first of all, I see Dwight continually, and this applies to Joe too as a leader in the organization, I see them giving credit where credit is due. I also, secondly, see them showing genuine interest. And then thirdly, I see them continually reinforcing our values. So I have to tell you that without leadership buy-in, culture probably is going to fall flat. And this shouldn't just be an agenda item for you. It should be something that you're living and breathing. And I can tell you that Dwight is totally in when it comes to culture. So that's the first thing, leadership buy-in. Secondly is core ideology. What does this even mean? Well, core ideology is really your core purpose. It is who you are. We at Hueman, once we identified what that was, established our core values, and then ultimately perpetuated those core values throughout our organization as much as we possibly could. So one way you can perpetuate the core ideology by is by evaluating prospective employees during the hiring process, looking at them through the lens of your core ideology and your core values. At Hueman, our core values look like this. Our core purpose was determined to be creating great employment experiences. And our core values of excellence, change, trust, service, and teamwork are at the heart of who we are. It's at the heart of what we do. It's at the heart of how we behave within our organization. So I have a question for you. Does your company live and breathe your core values every day? Here's another poll that we can take just quickly. Go ahead and take a second. Does your company live and breathe your core values every day?
John, I'm not able to respond as one of the speakers, but I would respond yes to that as a Hueman organization.
I'm glad to hear that. All right, I'm going to end the polling and I'll share the results here. So it looks like, about half are yes, half are no, and about a third split by a third sometimes. So interesting results here. The reality is that we all are probably on different pages when it comes to our core values. I have seen companies, we probably all have, where you walk into the company and you might see their core values kind of posted on a banner on the wall. But the question is, are they living their core values? Are they breathing those? And I can say, honestly, at Hueman, it's what we live and breathe every day. So core values are critical, and that core ideology are critical. Next is communication. And we like to break this down into two things here. First, top-down communication, which ultimately is what we would consider a platform for the senior leadership to communicate to those that they're leading. And so we do this at Hueman in a number of ways. One way is by holding what we call an 831 meeting. This is every Monday. Our company holds a company-wide meeting. Over 200 people participate. And ultimately, this is the opportunity for one of our managers, one of our team leads to present all of the information for that week. It could be statistics on partnerships that we're serving. It could be results on a recent survey that we've taken in the company. It could be an update on one of the committees that we're talking about. It could even be financially updating us regarding the company's performance. We also do town halls. Town halls are held quarterly. It's where our CEO and founder, Dwight Cooper, takes some time to really just as a company open up and share from his heart where we are as a company, what's working, what's not working, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We have this thing called 15 fives, where as employees, we can make comments to our senior leaders, and then they can comment back. Our senior leadership does a great job of recognizing new hires, honoring birthdays and anniversaries, things like that. So that's kind of the top-down approach. But we also have a bottom-up approach. This is a platform for individuals to share with senior leadership. So during those town halls, we actually are given a live Q&A opportunity where we can put Dwight on the hot seat and say, okay, Dwight, what about this? Or what about this? And he welcomes those opportunities to answer those questions. Of course, we have one-on-ones. We have team meetings, we have off-site meetings. I want to add a third element to communication, and that is lateral communication. So this is where peer-to-peer communication might come in. When you have peers communicating with each other, now there's some real power in that. So Hueman gives us a great opportunity to share our shout outs to each other during our 15-5 opportunities. That 15-5 platform is a platform we actually log into. We're providing information about how our week went, how do we feel at that current time, and we can provide those shout outs to our peers. We also can give core value awards. So we're able to say, hey, Joe demonstrated excellence this week, and post that so that the entire company can see that. And then during our 831s, you should see the chat feature. We use Zoom as well. It is lighting up during the entire 831. So we're getting this real-time feedback from our team to make sure that we're communicating with each other. We're hearing from our senior leadership, but we're also sharing up as well. Next is hiring. How does hiring affect culture? Where I'm breaking this down into active and passive hires. I think we all probably know the difference. So active hires are folks that are actually actively looking for positions. passive hires are ones that may not be looking, but are willing to talk to you. I would say that Hueman is brilliant at going after the passive candidates. And as you can see here, there's a high percentage of people that most of these employers are going after mostly active candidates. And Hueman has discovered the value of going after passive candidates. That's how I was hired. And as I mentioned previously, I went through a total of, again, 7 formal and informal interviews that culminated with really a panel interview that lasted about 2 hours. And I thought it would be helpful to just highlight that interview format for you. I've seen this to be very effective for interviewing within the Hueman team. Here's how that breaks down. The panel interview, we also call this top grading. It's done in a panel format. We have one person leading it. Maybe there's 3 or 4 others that join that call. But it's really about understanding the candidate's track record of success. So they actually will take that candidate all the way back to high school and start to ask them questions about what's been successful for you, what challenges did you have. Then they'll step into college, ask the same questions, but then they'll get into the jobs and specifically ask questions relating to individuals that were on their team, as well as people that were supervising them. And so we find that there's actually a truth serum in this, that as we're asking these very poignant questions, the truth begins to bubble up. When you're asking somebody not just, hey, what did you think of that job? But, hey, who is your supervisor? And what was his name? And what did he think of you? Those are the types of questions that now suddenly somebody's put on the hot seat and has to answer honestly. And we find that oftentimes that's going to cause, more times than not, cause the truth to bubble up so that we can really get an idea of what those success factors for that individual were. We're going to include this in the deck that we send out to you. So hopefully this will be of some value to you in your interview process as you move forward with that. And then lastly, in terms of culture, I want to touch on transparency. What does that mean to us at Hueman? Well, it just simply means that we have an open book management approach. It means that we're providing consistent transparency when it comes to the financials to our team, to our company. On our quarterly meetings that Dwight holds, he's giving, again, the good, the bad, the ugly, and he's letting everybody into just what's going on behind the doors of Hueman. And ultimately what this does is, as a result of his honesty, as a result of our leadership's honesty and transparency, they earn the trust of the employees. And we can trust that he's telling us that they're telling us the truth when they show us the P&L and everything else that's going on. Transparency is absolutely key. I'm going to end our time together with just talking for another minute or two about keeping your workforce engaged and motivated. The key components, those 5 key components of a culture by design, really are not complete without engagement. And engagement and culture intertwine. So if you have a great culture, you likely have an engaged employee workforce as well. And if you don't have a solid company culture, then you likely lack engagement. So as a basic definition, employee engagement looks like this. It's the emotional and functional commitment that an employee has to his or her organization. In the chat, we were going to take a poll, but just for sake of time, in the chat, I'd love to know, what percentage of your employees are engaged? Let me know that in the chat. Would you say that a high percentage are, medium percentage, a low percentage? It'd be interesting to find that out. According to Gallop, highly engaged teams show 21% greater profitability. And those teams who score in the top 20% in engagement realize a 41% reduction in absenteeism, 59% less turnover. So there's no question that when an engaged employee shows up, they're passionate, they're full of purpose, they're present, and they bring energy. So what does this look like at Hueman? I thought this might be helpful for you to kind of get an idea of some of the things that we at Hueman have done that have been successful in terms of engagement. All of these are super important. All of these are things that we've done very effectively. But I would say that maybe one of the ones that stands out to me is recognition. And I'll just give a quick example, and then I'm going to wrap up. But when we are able to introduce new partnerships to Hueman, it's an exciting time for us because we not only get to see our impact on that partner, but the impact that it brings to Hueman. And so I'll give you an example. About 3 months ago, when I was able to introduce a new partnership to Hueman, my direct lead contacted me and said, congratulations. Joe quickly followed with an email, maybe a phone call actually, of congratulations. Dwight Cooper, the CEO, called me personally to congratulate me. The entire leadership team reached out via email to congratulate me. We then, in our team meeting during the week, I was congratulated and encouraged. And then finally, on our 831 team meeting, the entire company recognized me and thanked me for the opportunity to serve another partner. So you see the importance of that, like, trickle down effect. It's super, super important. One of the other things that I would say is key at Hueman is the fostering an environment of trust through delegating and providing leadership opportunities within committees. We have a bunch of those within Hueman: core values committee, a community service committee, DEI, wellness, 401k. All of those things are actually specifically gauged by metrics. We hold those to metrics, and it gives people an opportunity, a unique opportunity, one, to get plugged in within things that they're passionate about. Two, they're able to lead. And three, they're able to communicate effectively the core values that we hold so near and dear to our heart. My last slide for the day, and then I'll wrap up, Lamise. I want to show you this because it's been a challenging year for all of us, obviously. And I have to say that a culture by design really sustained our business in time of crisis. In fact, we embraced it. We leaned on our culture more than we ever have in the past. And these are some key things that we were able to accomplish as a company. One of the things that really stood out to me was what we call our Hueman stimulus plan, where Hueman gave each of the employees in the company, over 200 people, a cash incentive of $150. And the design was to use that money specifically at an organization in your community that was struggling. So the idea was infuse the community with that $150. In my case, we had a chance to go to a restaurant that was really struggling. I treated my family to a great meal. I tipped them really, really well, and ultimately was helping the community while also getting a fantastic meal. So there's this service element that really permeates Hueman and our culture. And if you're wanting to know how to survive in a crisis, culture and engagement is absolutely one of the things that will get you there. So I know I've said a lot. I talked really fast, and hopefully you were able to catch some nuggets along the way. But I do want to leave just a few minutes for some questions. If anyone happens to have any, please jot those in the chat feature, or Lamise, maybe you've got some already that have been compiled.
Thank you, John. And I know we challenge you with this new 30-minute format. That's a lot of information and a lot of good stuff. As I was listening to you, I thought it was also very applicable to us as an association and the core values and the culture that we have with our membership. A lot of that I could relate with. We do have a Sarah, no questions, but she enjoyed the presentation. Thank you, Sarah, for the feedback. A question from Courtney about core values, John, and she's asking, how do you get people really living and breathing your core values?
That's a great one. I love that question because for me, it's a big part of it is recognition, and Hueman does a brilliant job of giving people the opportunity to tell stories. So whether that's individual stories and encouraging each other, telling that in a team meeting, or even telling that on our 831 company call, really just celebrating with people when they are living and breathing those core values gets people excited to want to do that even more prevalently. Joe, I'd love to hear from you though, if you've got something to share in terms of how to live and breathe those core values.
Yeah. When I think about core values and how to live and breathe them, it's all encompassing. So as a leader within Hueman and having the privilege to be a part of a great team, we think about our organization and our culture and our values every single day at some point. It's not a set it and forget it. It's a think about it type of approach. And you sort of get into that rhythm, and it's hard. I mean, it takes a lot of time to do that, especially if you're not in an environment where your leaders are really thinking about core values, culture, and engagement every single day. There's fires in front of us. There's issues you have to solve. There's employee issues, customer issues, et cetera. But you've always got to spend a little bit of time, either in the beginning of the day, end of the day, thinking about how am I going to drive the culture and the core values of our organization, because it's so important.
That's good, Joe.
I do have another question, and I'm gonna throw this out there. You mentioned some of the engagement and some of the systems that you use internally at Hueman, things like the 15-5 check-ins and the 831 and so forth. Do you have any surveys that you would recommend for evaluating engagement and company culture?
Joe, I'll let you handle that one.
Yeah, so we actually have participated in many types of engagement surveys in the past. We actually, for many years now, have been working with the Gallop Q12 engagement survey. There's 12 questions. They've probably had millions of people complete the survey, so there's a lot of good benchmark data to compare yourselves against. And oh, there it is. Yeah, so those are the 12 questions that Gallup has, and it sort of is built on sort of a pyramid. You know, employees need to know what's expected of them at the beginning of your assessment of engagement, and do they have the materials and equipment to do their job? Do they have the opportunity to do their best work? But all of those things are important, so it's not completely linear from 1 to 12. And if anyone is interested in learning more about the Gallop Q12, we're not a consultant to Gallop Q12, but we've been doing it so far and have won awards. We're very comfortable to talk through the different dynamics. So Lamise, if you have questions, we can talk offline about it as well.
I think I want to close with just solidifying a point. As a industry association for RPO, our mission is to educate the market about RPO. And one of the things that you helped us with here today is to communicate the additional value RPOs bring to their partners. So unlike traditional staffing and recruiting agencies, RPO provide this added benefit, if you will, and part of that is recruiting for culture, right? So help me make that additional point about what makes Hueman and what make RPO different than traditional recruiting, in particular in terms of recruiting for culture.
That's a great question. You know, one of the things for sure is, as an RPO, Hueman really focuses on hiring for the right fit. So, you know, and that's probably one of the big differences between maybe us and some other more traditional recruiting methods. We're looking for not just the right skill set, we're looking for that right cultural fit. So we as an RPO are immersing ourselves in the culture of the companies that we serve. We're really getting to understand, what are your processes? What are your efficiencies? What are you struggling with? What are your mission, your vision, your values? We actually at Hueman have what we call a Hueman persona, where we're looking at every specific job description. We're working with hiring managers to make sure we understand, what is that person that you're looking for? What's that ideal candidate? And so then we're going to market to find that person. And then we're calibrating. So if we happen to find somebody that isn't quite the right fit, we are then calibrating with the hiring managers to make sure that next time we bring even a better fit. So I would say that's one of the major differences between us and maybe some more traditional methods.
Well said. Thank you very much. And I do want to wrap our call for today. We did ask for 30 minutes. If you have a couple of minutes to stay with us, I just have a few quick announcements about some of our upcoming events. And I'm going to ask John to give me a screen share, please.
You got it.
Let me see. Awesome, thank you so much. And I am right here. So before we close the webinar, I'd like to share a few upcoming events. First of all, if you are not familiar with the RPOA, we're a member-driven organization serving the entire global RPO ecosystem and striving to be the place to go for RPO. Our mission, as I said, is to educate the marketplace about RPO. We offer thought leadership in collaboration with our wonderful partners like Hueman today. We host 2 active blogs, produce a monthly newsletter, offer many free resources, and host webinars. We have 2 webinar programs. First, the RPO Leadership Forum is a monthly webinar series scheduled for the 3rd Tuesday of each month. Each month, we host 1 or 2 webinars for RPOA members. The webinars are 30-minute format each on an educational topic for RPO providers or talent acquisition and HR leaders. Our next RPO Leadership Forum is on June 15th. ADP will be sharing effective recruiting strategies in a virtual environment. The second webinar program is the RPOA Expert Panel. And that is an RPOA produced webinar featuring speakers from different perspectives and industry backgrounds. We host about 4 of these panels per year. The next panel is scheduled for June 1st. It's going to be on global RPO and will include experts from Everest Group, Cornerstone, and Pontoon Solutions. The panel will be moderated by global RPO consultant Erin Peterson. Registration for all events are currently open, the couple I mentioned, and upcoming events you can find on our website on the events page. You can also find webinars on demand and other free resources on the RPO Academy, including many content from Hueman. You can find the content by filtering on the partner, and I highly recommend Hueman's content, not only because they are a remarkable partner, but because they produce excellent content. With that, I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. Please stay connected, stay engaged, stay informed of what's happening in the RPO world by tuning into the RPOA, the place to go for RPO. Thank you so much to our speaker, John Chapman, and our guest, Joe Marino.
Thank you, Lamise.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks.